This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Good morning, Ira. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing well. Coming off a good interview with Andy Ellisberg, the Heat general manager, yesterday during a day off at the Heat at Summer League. He really sort of reset the tone, put perspective out there. And I think it's really important, Big O. I know social media is a big part of your show, and people can sort of just take off on their own and make the worst case scenarios and say why X and Y should have been done. But you and I know this. In salary cap worlds, there are limitations. In collective bargaining agreements, there are limitations. And you have to work through all that. How many times, Big O, do you on your message board, the Dolphins should make this trade, the Heat should do this deal, the Panthers should sign this guy? And what I appreciate about what Andy Ellisberg said is it comes in the wake of the Panthers winning a championship and losing some quality contributors from their lineup, because that's the reality in sports, in salary cap worlds. You cannot have it all, whether it's Christian Wilkins, whether it's Montour from the Panthers, whether it's the Heat losing Caleb Martin. You have to also accept there were other parameters in place. Andy was very good about that. So being out here in Vegas, it's nice. You get to see the young kids, the next generation, but you also appreciate what's going on with the current generation.
No, and listen, I understand the interview, and I understand. I'm glad that Andy gave us that perspective. But at the same time, I'm sitting there and I'm reading this, and I heard some too, because he also did another audio one, and so in all of that, my problem with this is why I want you to reset, because you're in purgatory, and he explained that once you sign Rozier,
right,
they knew that they put themselves right in the middle of the aprons, and that they were stuck already at that point, and that they were going to have a very limited, off season in what they could do and what they could offer. Okay. And again, I like Rozier. I like the player. I don't have a problem. And like most guys, I expect them to play even better when they're here, because the coaching is what makes the difference here, all the time. But my point is, you want to get back to really being a championship caliber team, well, you're going to have to take a couple of steps back. And as much as Riley doesn't like doing that, even though he did it back in 08 and 09, I think that's the best way to move forward, is to go backwards and try to go get as much capital as you can from Butler and everything else. But unfortunately, in that same interview, I keep hearing, you're going to chase your tail, you're going to chase your tail, you're going to chase your tail, because the whole Jimmy Butler thing is, well, yeah, if he wants to be here and we want him here, we want to win, we'll make it work or whatever. And so they're moving forward with Jimmy Butler. They're not going to move from him. So to me, I appreciate the explanation, but I also see what's resulted from it from the last 10 years of these bad moves on top of bad moves on top of bad moves, and now you have no draft capital, and that's your problem right now.
I find this interesting, and this even predates our accurate Pembroke Pines reports, and this goes back several years ago, but I remember following the Orlando Alzugaray show, whether he was on QAM or out at the soccer stadium or somewhere else, but one of the points you keep coming back to is the bad contracts. And I remember the Ndamukong Suh contract when it was signed. You were all over that. You talked about the negative. You talked about money in a salary cap world misspent. So what people who look at the Heat have to look at this is, has the money been properly allocated? We saw with Kyle Lowry, they got off the money. We saw with Jimmy Butler, it was properly allocated at the start when he arrived on that initial contract. I think Big O, even with Bam Adebayo signing his $166 million extension, which is max, but not super max, you could probably live with that. Tyler Hero at $25-30 million a year, you might not live with that. So what I'd say is this: anyone can play this game. We all can be Andy Ellisberg. Andy Ellisberg believes the proper amounts were paid to the proper players. In the interview I did, he spoke about Kevin Love, he spoke about Haywood Highsmith, he spoke about market politics. But the big contracts are where you live or you die in today's NBA. This is not a big three world anymore. You can't afford it. It's never going to happen again what the Heat had in 2010. It's the big two. So the Denver Nuggets said, we're going to go forward with Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, even if we lose Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. For better or worse, and LeBron, who always wants a big three, it's Anthony Davis and LeBron and supporting players. So the Miami Heat have to damn well better be sure at each juncture their big two is the best possible big two. For the last 4 years or so, Bam and Jimmy have been fine. 3 Eastern Conference Finals appearances, 2 NBA Finals appearances. But, Big O, to your point, we talk every week here in our accurate Pembroke Pines report, the next Jimmy contract. Are you going to be comfortable 2, 3, 4 years out with Jimmy and Bam as your big two? Because that's all you get in today's new NBA with the CBA and the tax aprons. Your big two had damn well better be your leaders. They were for the Celtics with Tatum and Brown. They have a championship. That's where the Heat have to stand. And you know what, Big O? You talk about taking a step back. I look at it as a recalibration. If Bam is going to be one of your big two, you damn well better find the other part of the big two for after this season and seasons going forward.
Yeah, and that's where that. But you won't find that star without capital unless somehow or another, Rashad or Khalil or one of these guys
becomes Bam. Sure.
No.
Better than Bam. Better than Bam.
Offensively, better than has to have that offensive. That has to be Dwayne Wade. Has to be that mother effer that refuses to be and that's just not Bam. That's just not who he is. He's the all-around player, and that's fine. Bam's not the problem here. The problem has always been for them that they haven't been able to find that other star. But like you said, now with the aprons, now you're screwed now. You know what I mean? When you first did the Jimmy deal, you still could go get that third star. You could try to
different
find
rules. Yes.
And you did. You tried. Lowry was your third guy. That's the guy you paid $30 million. That was supposed to be the guy, and you failed, unfortunately. That's really been, your issue now. But you're never going to get there with Bam and Jimmy now because you don't have enough offense overall to really get there. So you're kind of stuck in a rock in a hard place, and you have an aging superstar that is not going to continue to produce the same because he can't anymore.
He's old. I'm old. You're old.
Yes.
But you know what? I would put it this way. I look at it a little different way. So you're looking at your cafecito half empty. I'm going to look at it a little more half full from this perspective. If Jaime Jaquez continues to be the special player he looks like, and I love that he's here in Summer League showing he's willing to put in the work. If Nikola Jokic continues to upgrade like he did last season, gets hopefully a chance to play with the Olympic team, what I'm saying to you, Big O, is this. If the Heat have players like Bam and Nikola and also Jaime Jaquez Jr., I could see an outside person saying, I want to be with those guys. Those are really good supporting players. You airlift me in there. And look, if they airlifted in Dame Lillard, they would have been fine. If they airlifted in Donovan Mitchell, they would have been fine. And the one thing Paul George showed us, if you put aside your cap space, you still can airlift in a current level all-star player. So I do like how the Heat are trending because they have young, sexy players who a star can look at and go, yeah, Jaime shares the ball. Yeah, Bam's going to cover my back on defense. Yeah, this Nikola kid is going to stretch the floor and let me have the paint. They're setting up something really nice. And to me, this reminds me to a degree of the Panthers. They realized for what they had was good, but not good enough. And then they made the Kachuk move. And then they brought him in there. They surrounded him. They had to move off of talent. You might have to move off of Jimmy. They moved off of Huberdeau. And you could see the difference that it makes. They're building to something nice. Big O says they might have to take a step back and might not be wrong. The Heat think, because that's who they are, we can stay level and eventually lift it from a level to a higher level. Andy Ellisbrook spoke in his radio interview. It's hard to win 4 playoff games. It's harder to win 8. It's even harder to win 12 like the Heat did. And it's really hard to win the 16 to win a title. They think they're at that 4 or 8 level. They understand they need to get to that 12 playoff win level and that 16 win playoff level. but they're not willing to step out of the playoffs. It's who they are. And you know what? Big O.
But wait a minute. See, here's where
Okay.
if you trade Jimmy, I don't think you fall out of the playoffs because you have the best coach in the NBA. I think you'll get the best out of all your young guys. They'll all get to play their max and grow and all of that. They don't have to make any room for any star. And in that process, you might develop a star because that person will get to grow and like actually Jaquez could actually grow even more
into the next level. Sure.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you've got all those picks you got from the Jimmy trade along with that group of young guys. Now you become really, really sexy, as a team. I just think that I've got the best chef that there is, but right now I might be shopping at Aldi's. I need to go over to Whole Foods. You know what I'm saying? I'm not.
Have you seen the prices there? That's the problem. He doesn't have the cap space. Whole Foods, who the hell can afford? Yeah, it's unless you got your Prime card or something, you kind of screwed there anyway. But I think we both agree that they're building a nice base for themselves, which is fine. To your point, you could lose Jimmy. The East at the bottom sucks. Detroit, Washington, Atlanta, Chicago, Charlotte, they're all rebuilding. You could only fall so far. But you know what it is to me? And this is
Jedi Master. I have the Jedi Master to teach the Padawans. So that's why I know that you've been in the play-ins the last 2 years. He'll do the same shit again, or maybe even get the 6th seed, with the Padawans. That's the way I look at it.
I would say it this way. Is Jimmy Butler going to be in the Heat this season? Sure. Might he be on the Heat next season in his option year? Perhaps. But we're at that transition point, and it's hard because this is a marriage, and the Heat are trying to keep it together. And we've seen even this offseason, and this concerns me, and it's not wrong. I think the Heat build emotional bonds almost a little too strong because of their culture. Kevin Love, God bless him. But 2 years at $4 million a year versus 1. Thomas Bryant waves a towel like nobody's business. But bringing him back after his defense struggled so much last season, it makes you question things. Haywood Highsmith, a locksmith on defense, I get it. But also putting yourself close to that second apron with the contract you gave him, the Heat's loyalty is unquestioned and unchallenged. But sometimes they fall a little too in love with what's in place as opposed to being willing to make a change. Only when Alonzo Mourning forced his way out with the New Jersey contract did they start the transition that year. Only when LeBron left did they start that transition. Only when Chris Bosh got ill did they start that transition. Sometimes you have to say, we value culture. We are a loyal franchise because UD's been here forever. But sometimes you've got to cut the emotional ties and get the talent ties there so we can see what the Spo is cooking with something maybe a little better when it comes to the recipe and the ingredients.
Yes, please. Let's get back to Whole Foods. All right, now I got to tell you, I think this is really ridiculous. This is like the guy that goes off to college, and then in his off time he comes back and he's hitting on the chicks in high school. In fact, we have a highlight of Jaime Jaquez on Saturday night. We have a highlight of him, and we need to play this highlight for you there, okay? Can we enlarge it? All right, here we go. Look at that. I mean, seriously, look at that. That's Jaime Jaquez in Summer League
against the Kitty Celtics. But you know what, Big O? A bunch of people have asked me, why is he here?
Here's the thing. You're risking injury for nothing. He has nothing to prove in a Summer League game.
I understand. But we asked Jaime, if you weren't here, what would you be doing? And he would be at the Pro-Am in Miami that UD runs. He would be playing in the Open Run in California anyway. So you know what, Big O? If he's going to be on the court anyway, I'd rather him be around the Heat training staff, the Heat coaching staff, the Heat conditioning staff anyway. That's the thing people don't get. People go, why are these guys, even the Olympic guys, people are going, why are they risking it? Why is Nico pushing himself? These guys.
that's country stuff. I
Okay,
you
but these
gotta
guys play
do that,
anyway. They're
right?
going to play anyway. So you might as well have them in structure. Now, if you want to tell your players, don't play basketball at all, that's one thing. You see it all the time. Remy has open runs down in Miami. Guys show up there anyway. Players play. If you go to Tyler Hero's Instagram, he's out there. He's playing. He could take that misstep. I'd rather have Jaime playing in structure and playing minutes the Heat can control than having him out in an open run and maybe pushing himself too hard. Big
You
O,
can't
I disagree with you with this only on this point. I
you can't
love
control
players who
the
love to play.
Yeah, but you can't control the overzealous summer league player that wants to make a name for himself,
That I
taking
get.
the proven NBA player. I understand their. It's like, okay, dude. I listen. I know my kid will be all right, but then, but my kid might go somewhere where the environment may not be good, and they may be out of control of that environment. Well, the second Jaime steps on that court, whoever he's facing, that's out of their control. That person comes in a bad mood or not, he knows he's not making the team or whatever, or he's on the brink or whatever, and he's overzealous and tries and hurts Jaime for no reason at all. I don't know, man. To me, I'm not going to be impressed with his stats because
I
what
agree
20.
with that. Totally.
Dude, you're playing nobodies. You're supposed
Correct.
to dog their asses. And if you get injured in this game, that means nothing whatsoever. It's optics. Even if you get injured behind the scenes, which I'm sure we could go over 30 years of history of talking about players that got injured behind the scenes, also doing stuff. So that happens. I get it. But because the optics are not there, it's not as a big deal. But if it happens tonight, in a summer league game, it's the optics. It's not going to be good for Miami.
I get that, but he's going to be at the Drew League anyway. He's going to be at those open runs. LeBron plays when it's not an Olympic year at the open runs. Players
That's
play this.
He's a cyborg. Don't
Okay,
compare.
but players play. That's what they do. But you know what? Let's bring it full circle here. But you have to say something about Jaime, that he shows up to support his teammates, that he goes to the practices, that he's there during summer league with others. This is a really good kid. We talk about the Heat getting the right type of people and the right type of persons. This is a guy who's in the culture, whether you agree with it or not. This guy who's in it to win it. This guy, you know what? This is why you take the 4-year player. Another kid the Heat have on their summer league team, this kid Isaiah Stevens, been lights out. 5-year player at Colorado. Sometimes you get these mature kids, they will make the right decision. This is not Michael Beasley coming in after 1 year at K-State and going off and doing God knows what and playing back in D.C. in the summer. This is a kid who's going to do the smart thing. This is a mature, young individual.
No, I'm not quite. I mean, I love Jaime from the get-go. You could tell he's got that it factor to him.
Absolutely.
I'm a big Jaime fan. And I don't question anything on Jaime. I just question them playing him in meaningless, games that oh man, because he's a guy you treasure.
And he's a guy who's going to be playing with Kalel Ware, and he's a guy who's going to be playing with Pelle Larsson. So at least he gets to introduce himself to the 2 draft picks. They get to know him. They know his game a little more by playing with them. He knows their games a little more by playing with them. Because right now, as we talked about at the top of our Accurate Pembroke Pines report, because of the Heat's cap situation, the young kids will have to play this year. So at least Jaime gets to know him. So you know what? Yes, there's always the injury risk. But the fact is he's committed to the team, willing to put in the time and effort, and willing to be with his teammates. Yeah, it's kind of opposite of Jimmy being off in Germany at Europa and Jaime showing up at Summer League to support teammates. So I think it's mostly a plus for showing the type of person that he is.
Oh yeah, no, that's outstanding. I mean, and Hayward is all. I know Hayward has, whatever that terrible night for him that could happen to any of us.
Absolutely.
By the way, any of us can happen. But outside of that, he's an outstanding young man.
Yeah, this mostly is a pretty good locker room, and I appreciate a lot of the players that he had brought in recently. Absolutely.
Everybody's about Heat culture. It's just the whole Jimmy, hey, we're taking off the regular season thing the last 2 years. That's what's been out of the Heat culture. That's what's not
toxic.
Heat culture.
That's been toxic. and that can't continue. I agree.
Yeah. All right. So what are you working on this Sentinel so folks can check you out?
Well, we got another summer league game coming up, 6 o'clock Eastern, ESPNU against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Summer team. Nice to see these kids. It's funny because I know when Big O came out there, he would also get the impressions of the newcomers. This kid, Isaiah Stevens, I wrote yesterday, reminds me so much of Kyle Lowry, a little less junk in the trunk, but showing that, hey, the Heat still find these players. They got him signed to an Exhibit 10. He can't sign away from the team. He has a chance to be here. He's looked good. And Keyshawn Johnson, the two-way player they signed out of Arizona, he had a holy crap dunk at the end of the third quarter against the Celtics. You could see it. Another 3-and-D guy, that big buff body. Hey, Caleb is gone. They keep running him through. This is something Big O talks about. Don't overpay your supporting players. They offered Caleb the money. He went instead to the Sixers. They keep replenishing that pipeline. Caleb Martin goes out. Keyshawn Johnson comes in. They have done such a good job scouting, Adam Simon and his staff, whether they have second-round picks or not, they add players. Khalil Ware, if you watch him tonight, I like some of what he does. I still have my Hassan-like worries about the motor. Half the time, he's full speed. Half the time, he's no speed. They've got to change that because you're either going to wind up with the player you thought you were drafting or maybe a Christian Wood. I would keep an eye on Khalil Ware in these remaining summer league games. The motor has got to improve.
And by the way, on the Stevens kid, I'm not comparing the players or the talent or saying that he's that guy or anything like that. But the one characteristic I like of Stevens that reminds me of Tim Hardaway, again, not comparing the player, the moxie of his shooting skills. He is unafraid to take any shot. He is confident in his shot. That's the one thing I used to love about Timmy's game. He was confident about his shot. Even if it was a bad night, he wasn't going to shoot like he was scared. He was shooting like he was going to try to make it all the time.
A 5-year collegian who knows who he is, who has that maturity. I think he'll be on at least a 2-way contract before this whole process is done.
Yeah. There's a little moxie to the kid that I like about him, man. So yeah, it's interesting. It's fun to watch. I enjoy summer league nowadays. It's always fun to watch.
You take it as the diversion it is. You don't overstate it, but hey, it's free summer hoops. No complaints here.
It's foundational stuff, bro.
Yes.
That's
foundational is a very good word. Yeah.
That's kind of what it's all about. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat, and then catch his exceptional work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel, and of course the Andy Ellisberg interview. Check that out there too. Ira, thank you as always. We'll catch up next week.
Next week in our Accurate Pembroke Pines report. Thanks, Big O.
You got it. There you go. And Accurate Pembroke Pines, they are celebrating their 16th anniversary. They just did, and now they've got some great deals going on. And that's why I encourage you to get on down to 15601 Pines Boulevard, just off of I-75 in Pines. And they've got the new ZRX. You want to get electrified? It gets like 320 miles, I think it is, to the full charge. You can find it there, baby. $499 a month. You can lease it. The MDX $479. The Integra, that thing is beautiful. $319 a month. They got a large selection out there, man. So get on down there. Tell Larry Schlossberg, Pat Nasto, Tony Stampone that, hey, Big O sent you. They will take care of you. And if you own or lease an Acura, Mike Chan, Jordan Ferber, they will make your life a lot easier. So if you're going there to get your tires balanced or rotated, or you're changing the oil or filters, and please, by the way, if you own your car, not just Acura, any car, change those air filters and those oil filters and the gas filters. Your cars will last a lot longer. So get on down there. Go talk to my guys. So if you own or lease an Acura, they'll take care of you. At Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.